Hey everybody, it's Ken. So first of all, thank you guys so much for watching these videos. And we've gotten some really good comments. Some are really funny, some are super negative. Actually, I'm getting a kick out of all of them. So keep them coming. Thank you very much. I love these questions because then I can turn them into videos like this. And so the big question on a lot of people's minds is, how long is this whole lockdown gonna last? How long is this recession gonna last? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What is my opinion? So what I've done is I've obviously dug into this and I wanna know as well. So this was a very easy question for me to catch and to be able to do something on. So I'm calling this video the lockdown recovery prediction. So I'm actually gonna try to predict what I think is gonna happen here. And of course, you guys will predict that I'm wrong and some of you will say thank you and all that. Anyway, keep them coming. It's the best. I love the feedback, whatever it might be. So let's go right to the first thing. So the big question on everybody's mind, and the one thing that you're hearing from everybody is, on this recovery, is this going to be a V shape or a U shape? So basically, what this means here and what people are saying, and you're going to read a lot about this, and I think what you got to do is you got to look at people's intention. So obviously, if you're a realtor.com or you're the Home Builders Association, you're going to go here because you have to give hope to everybody and say, listen, we're going to come right back to this. We're going to, this thing's going to be bouncing right back. And all these jobs that we just lost, and a lot of them are going to come back, and I'm going to go through that in a minute. They're going to come right back because they have a whole industry to protect. I don't blame it. I'm really heavy in the real estate, as you guys know, and so I understand it. But then on the other side of this, at the U shape, what you have is all kinds of other people predicting what they think. And over here you're going to find mostly the economists and people that are looking at kind of long-term macro trends. And I think it's going to be somewhere kind of in the middle. But basically, we're talking about when the economy was high in February 2020. So if you take a look at that particular period of time, we had 5.8 million people unemployed and a 3.5% unemployment rate. That's where we were. Just Google it and you'll see. And as you guys, a lot of you know, it's the best that we've ever been in 50 years in the United States. And so the question is, if we started off there, right here, and we know that we're here right now this could actually keep going, or we might be done. We're not exactly sure. When's it gonna bounce back up? And then of course, this thing is all about time. How long is this gonna be? Is this gonna be 90 days? Is this gonna be 9 months? Is this gonna be who knows how long? Or is it gonna be longer and prolonged and is it gonna come up over a matter of years? And so that's the big question. And so what I want you guys to focus on, because there's a lot of opinions out there and there's a lot of facts and figures, and all of this stuff can be analyzed using real data. And the one thing that I love this statement that my good friend Trevor said to me once, he's like, this is just math. At the end of the day, I think we have to take a look at the raw data and take away all these opinions about, yes, we think the market's gonna recover, okay, based on what? Well, a lot of people don't have the what. They're just saying that. And sometimes they're just saying it because they're ignorant. Sometimes they're saying it because they have an angle. They're trying to sell something later. I'm seeing this right now. People are going, buy, 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 buy. Well, as you guys know, I did another video on don't catch a falling knife. But before we get into that and we decide on where prices are going to go and all of that, what I want to do is just stick with the math, because I think that is something that no one can argue. So we're going to follow the methodology of just following the math, using the exact real data and looking at the trends just from February to May of this year, because there are definitely trends. You can go back and look at your numbers in February, March, April, May. They're all different. They're all online. It's easy to follow, okay? So let's take a look at February 2020, and let's take a look at May 2020, okay? So obviously we all know these are very different scenarios. Okay, so in February, we had 5.8 million people unemployed. And in May of 2020, we have 36.5 million people unemployed. Now, if you don't believe me, just go Google it, you'll see. When I did this video last time, we were at 22, now we're at 36.5. Now, there's all kinds of data inside of here. These are unemployment claims filed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just don't get hung up on that. These are using the exact same data sets from February and from May, okay? So that percentage in February was 3.5%. That's a 3.5% unemployment. Now, as you guys know, the economy was doing great at that time. We were humming along, and here's the cool part. We were growing the economy by 200,000 people a month, okay? So when the economy was humming along, we had 5.8 million people unemployed, 3.5% of the lowest in 50 years, and we were growing by around 200,000 a month. Now, for those of you analytics, you're going to say, well, one month was 150, and that's true. And another month was 280, that's true, okay? But we have to use something here. We're not going to put down a whole bunch of data sets by month. But if you take a look, 200,000 was a pretty good number, and that was considered expansion, okay? And this, by the way, is going to become a very important number later on in the prediction. So I'm going to come back to this 200,000 positive growth by employment per month later because it's a big factor on the prediction. Here's the great thing about math. When you just look at the math, you can say, what's the difference between 5.8 and 36.5, okay? What it is, it's a 6.2 times difference. So that's what that is. So our unemployment went from 5.8 to 3.65, and that was 6.2 times, okay? So if you take the 6.25% change and you times it times the unemployment rate, then what you have is you have a 21.7% unemployment rate right now. Here's the fascinating thing. If you take 5.8 away from 36.5, what you have is a 30.7 million people difference, okay? And this is where we're going to hang out right here, okay? We went from 5.8 to 36.5. No one's disputing that, okay? That's over a 30 million person difference, okay? So that's the issue. So when we talk about V-shape or U-shape, we're trying to figure out when are these 30.7 people going to come back to work. That's the entire issue we're talking about here. But again, it's just math. And so these percentages actually are not really that relevant because these are the people that are hurting. These are the people that want to come back to work. These are the people that the businesses want to hire, okay? Now remember this figure here because we were growing at 200,000 a month. Now, net. The thing about that number is we're now going into a very different period of time, okay? So the question is, we'll go back to this. So the original question was, are we in a V-shaped recovery or a U-shaped recovery? So I'm going to walk you through what a V-shaped recovery would look like. So a V-shaped recovery would obviously be something like this. That's clear. Okay? And so here we are in February 2020, as you guys know, and we had 5.8 million people out of work. Okay? And then way down here in May of 2020, we have 36.5 million people out of work. And we already know that that's 30.7 million people difference. In other words, we're not trying to get to zero unemployment. We're just trying to get back to the 5.8 or what we all felt was normal at the time, okay? And so here we are, we'll call this May. The problem with doing this video now is we still have states that are not open, okay? I know for sure that California said they're gonna open in July, at the end of July or the first part of August, okay? But here we are in May. However, There's a lot of states that are opening. Like I'm in Arizona, our governor is opening in phases, okay? So the question is, and the real thing that everybody wants to know, if we really take a look at this, is how much time is this gonna be? That's the million-dollar question. How are we going to get these 30.7 million people back to work, and what period of time is it going to be? Okay? So some people are throwing all kinds of stuff out there. They're just winging it. They're saying, oh, this is going to be right back. When all the states are open in August 1st, so let's just use that one, August 1, 2020. Maybe that's the time that you think, okay. So the question is, are you going to be able to move 30 million people back to work in June and July? The answer is no, you're not. Okay, so let's pick 12/20. So the question is, again, are you going to be able to move 30 million people back to work in June through December? The answer is no. There's no possible way to get that many people back to work right away. Now, here's why I don't believe that that's going to happen. Just take a look at the openings. Take a look at Texas. Take a look at Arizona. Take a look at the businesses, okay? We already know that JCPenney's has filed Chapter 11. JC Crew has filed Chapter 11. Neiman Marcus has filed Chapter 11. And there's a whole bunch of small businesses that are closing their doors for good, and they've lost all their money. And there's a lot of employees that right now are choosing not to go back to work. So here's an interesting thing. I have a friend that owns a number of small gyms, and they had 26 personal trainers on their staff. So all 26 trainers were kind of furloughed 60 to 90 days ago. Well, then the government came in with all the stimulus money, because they should, because they're telling the gyms to close. Okay, so now we're open. So now these gyms all want to open. So my friend who called up all 26 of these trainers said, hey, we're opening back up. Can't wait to have you guys back. Guess how many decided to come back? Just take a guess. If you were to guess, 26 people that were trainers at these gyms, how many decided to come back? 0, okay? 26 people decided. Now, I understand that's a one-off scenario, but I'm talking to a lot of business owners. I'm talking to a lot. And a lot of them are struggling, dentists, doctors, anybody who has employees that are under $20 an hour, they're kind of making a decision. Do I go back to work? Do I want to work? Do I not want to work? Because guess what? Guess who business is competing with? The government. So those businesses are now competing with the government because those people are getting high unemployment. Now, I'm not saying the people don't deserve unemployment. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is those are the facts, okay? People are making choices right now. And so these businesses, they may open up, they may not open up, and that's just one factor. The other thing is, as we're starting to see these businesses open up, I flew privately to Texas the other day, and these businesses, because of the social distancing, they're 25, 50% occupied from what they were back in February 2020, okay? I just went to dinner here in Scottsdale the other night. Amazing restaurant, usually packed, Saturday night. It had about 30% capacity, okay? Full staff. I was happy to be there, and I was happy to support that business owner because I know the owner of that restaurant. We have the same issue with gyms, these big box gyms. These big box gyms, people, they're getting 20, 30% coming back because they're still afraid. The virus and the media is still talking about this stuff. So some people are just choosing not to go. Some people are going. There's people in all kinds of camps, and I'm not here to debate that. I don't care what camp you're in. The point is we're talking about recovery and we're talking about business, okay? So there are businesses that are trying to open. But there's no way that businesses can be socially distanced for a lot of them and be able to still cover their mortgage and still cover their rent and still cover their employees and still cover their overhead and still run, okay? A lot of these businesses are running on a lot less margin. And so I don't believe that we're going to have a V-shaped recovery, and this is why. How are you going to put 30.7 million people back to work by the end of the year. Now, if you take a look online, there's all these predictions, and I've been on a number of calls. I've been on every single call. The Arizona governor here, Doug Ducey, is the best. He's had a call every single week for the business community, and there's hundreds, if not thousands of people on this call, and you can ask him questions, and there's people represented all over the state with all different businesses. It's been super educational for me because I'm hearing things that are going on that I never even thought of, from the Grand Canyon, all the way down to the hotels and the restaurants. All these business owners are on there saying, this is what we have going, can you help us? So it's super educational for us, and it's been awesome. But one of the things that we're hearing from a lot of these folks is, some got their PPP money, which is the payroll protection program. Some did not. Some are hurting financially. Some are not reopening. Obviously, if you're in any kind of a hospitality business or retail business, and certainly the hotels, they have these big burn rates. They have these big overhead costs, and they're not even open. So, all of those things are happening. I personally own a hotel, so I know exactly what that's like. And, we've been covering it with 6 figures every single month just to keep it open because we have the cash reserves. But some people don't have the cash reserves. So all of this means that there's going to be a percentage of these 30.7 million people that are not going to come back to work. And that's the real debate, in my opinion. And nobody's really talking about this yet. However, I did find some information on this topic. But let's talk about what I consider to be the new normal. And so what we have here is we have the government is funding our employees or people. That's definitely happening. That's happening in the stimulus check. That's happening in the unemployment. And this here is going to be the biggest debate coming up in the next few months, especially around that election. So now, I'm not going to get political here, but I'm telling you, that decision will probably determine the election. The second thing is the government is funding our business. And the third thing is the government is managing our economy. Okay? So by our business, they're funding us through the PPP program, through the EIDL, there's grants, there's all kinds of things trying to keep us open. Okay? But the government is also managing our economy. They're telling us right now, these are the things that you have to do. You can be open, you cannot be open. You can be open, but you need to wear a mask. You can be open, but you need to be socially distanced. You can be open, but et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Rules are rules, okay? I'm not debating that. I'm just saying this is the normal, okay? So what we have is this is a big issue right now because the businesses that I know are struggling. If they're paying people under $20 an hour, those people, in large part, are deciding to stay home, okay? But the businesses, I think, are the key to this whole thing because the businesses are the ones that are going to create the jobs, and the businesses are going to be the ones that are going to be there for the people, for the goods and services that they need, okay? And this here, we can't control. It just is what it is, and we have to navigate through all this stuff. And there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of unknowns. Okay, let's talk about the U-shaped recovery now, okay? Because there's a lot of factors in here that we need to consider on what this recovery is going to look like. And I'm going to give you my prediction later, but there's definitely going to be some things that are going to determine whether or not this recovery will be short or whether or not the recovery will be really long, okay? Okay, so we know back in February of 2020 that we had 5.8 million people on unemployment. We know that, okay? So 5.8 million. So we'll start there, and then we'll go down to here, and we'll call this May 2020. And we know that right now we're at 36.5 million more, okay? And we know, as I said before, that this is a 30.7 million person issue, okay? So that's the real issue. That's what we have to make up, all righty? So now, what's the difference between here and here? All we're trying to do is get back to here. So the real question is, how many of these people are going to go back to work and how many people are not? That's actually the only debate, because that's going to determine whether it's a V or a long U, okay? So let's talk, there's a number of perspectives out there on how many jobs are going to stay permanently lost and how many are going to go back to work, okay? Now, I don't know, and I think it's going to vary by state and by city. But if you take a look around, you can see that, people are flying out of New York right now because they don't want to be there and they're moving. Okay, same with Washington State. And so there's all this movement happening around the country. And then, of course, there's all these things happening on the independent businesses. Obviously airlines have got killed, cruise ships have got killed, the hotels and hospitality industry has got killed. And a large, believe it or not, in a lot of areas, the healthcare system has got killed because they weren't able to do elective surgeries for the long period of time. So there's all these things happening, okay? So this particular economist here was on CNBC yesterday, and he said that 42% of the coronavirus-related job losses will be permanent, okay? Now, one man's opinion, okay? I actually don't think it'll be this high. I'm hoping, obviously, it won't be this high, but you have to pick a number. I mean, you have to. You have to, I don't know, is it 5%, 10%, 20%, 30%, 42%? I don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what the real truth is when they start taking a look at exactly how many of these 30.7 million people are not going to go back to work. And that is the entire issue of V or U, okay? So let's walk through that real quick. Let's use this economist's prediction, because he might be wrong, and you guys can take shots at all that. That's fine with me. I don't care. The point is, there is going to be something, okay? So, but for now, for this video, we're going to use 40%, okay? So what's 40% of 30 million? It's 12 million people, okay? So let's just say that we have 12 million people that are going to be permanently out of work, okay? Based on the 42%, 42% of the 30. Now, we're not trying to get back to zero because I've already calculated that in the 5.8. Again, it's just math. 40% of the 30.7 is 12 million people, all right? So here we are right now at 36.5 million people, okay? The difference between 12 million not being in work means, let's call it 18 million that are going to go back to work, all right? So what we're going to see is we're going to see this 36 go to, say, 18 million people unemployed. Here, okay? We know that that's probably going to happen. It's going to be some number. We just don't know the number, okay? But for this purposes, we're going to say it's 18 million people. Back to the original question, though, and that is time. So how long is this? Nobody knows. Okay, but I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that I believe that most of these people are going to be back to work by December of 2020. Okay? So if we draw a line here, it's December 2020, and we're going to be sitting with 18 million people unemployed. All right? That's what I think, based on the 40% of people that are not going to come back to work. The question is, certainly, is this guy right or not right? Is it going to be 42%? Is it going to be 30%? Doesn't matter. So if it's 30% of that, it's closer to 10 million, okay? If it's 40%, it's 12 million. If it's 20%, it's 6 million. It doesn't really matter. The point is, how long will this recovery will be based on how many of those businesses recover and how many people are not going to come back to work, okay? So in this particular video, we're going to go with 12 million based on this economist. You got to watch him. I think he did a good job of explaining why. This is I think it's going to be somewhere between 10 or 12 million, but the point is it's still going to be bad, okay? So here's the interesting thing. That's not how many people that are going to be unemployed. The real number is 12 million plus the 5.8, because we're just trying to get back to that. So the real number is going to be close to 18 million. That's actually going to be the real number. If this number is 10, then it'll be closer to 16. If this number is 8, of course, it'll be closer to 14. Again, pick your number. The point is there's going to be a lot of time here, okay? Now, here's the interesting thing, and here's why we can get into some of these predictions. So let's go back for a moment and take a look at this issue, okay? Remember when I told you guys this was going to be a big number? Okay, let's take a look. This number here is now very, very, very important because this is the real recovery number, okay? So we know when all the dust settles, there's going to be a percentage of the people that are not coming back to work. You have to add those to the original 5.8 million. Okay, now, what's the recovery going to look like? When everyone goes back to work, the dust settles, and we're sitting at 14, 16, 18 million people, what does that look like, okay? And the recovery is going to be on the net job growth, and that's going to happen on a month-to-month basis, just like it was when the economy was strong, okay? I don't believe that it's going to be 200,000 a month because that's when the economy was humming along. But we got to pick something. So that would be 2.4 million people net plus every year. Or, let's just use 2 million, okay? Let's just use 2 million. But it's going to be something. If the economy kicks right back up in 2021 and we're growing by 200,000 a month, then that's a 2 million plus difference in unemployment. Using the data from the earlier slide, where when the economy was humming along, we were doing 200,000 plus net job growth a month, or 2 million people a year, we'll use that exact same thing. So we'll use 200,000 jobs a month, which is, let's call it 2 million a year. That's what we're looking for. That was when the economy was healthy, okay? If you take the 2 million a year and you divide it into this, then we're looking at a recovery of 6 years, okay? Just to get back to the 5.8 million, okay? Now, there's a lot of areas that you guys can dispute. You can dispute whether it's 40%. We've already talked about that. But what you cannot dispute is that we have 36.5 million people right now on unemployment. And you cannot dispute that we're at 5.8 when we started. The only thing that you can dispute is how many of these people are going to come back to work and how many are not. So what does that mean? That means that here we are at the end of 2020. I believe we're going to be sitting around 18 million people unemployed, okay? So we'll call that ground zero. I believe that we're now looking at another 6 years at a minimum to get back to where we were based on that, okay? Now, there's a number of factors I want you guys to think about before we jump into the next slide. So, as you know, my prediction is obviously a minimum of a 6-year recovery, okay? Based on those numbers, based on that data, based on the facts. For those of you that think that 30 million people are going to go back to work by the end of the year, you're just in complete denial because it's just not going to happen. I'm just telling you that as a fact. Just take a look at the businesses. They're not hiring. They're going out of business. I have friends that own retail centers. I have friends that own regional malls. The regional malls are telling me 50% of the businesses inside of those malls are not going to make it, okay? Those are real people with real businesses, with real savings accounts, with real employees, with real houses, with real cars, and all those people are going to be hurting as a result of this. Those are facts, okay? So what's going to happen here, and it's all going to be based, in my opinion, on the 2021 government decisions, okay? So we already know that I showed you guys that the governments are doing 3 things, okay? The government's funding our employees or our people, the government's funding the businesses, and the government's managing the economy, okay? So we'll see what happens after we reopen. We'll see what rules and all those kinds of regulations come out. I'm sure that there's going to be all these kinds of acts like we saw after 9/11, all these new Patriot Acts and all these different things of people when they're moving money around. Okay, we're going to see a slew of that. This is the perfect time for these politicians to pass the things that they want to pass, okay, when everybody's in this kind of pain. But the big issue, the big contentious issue, in my opinion, is going to be right here when it comes to these employees and these people. The question is, how long will the government continue to compete with business for the employees or the people? That's the issue, because a lot of them are going to stay home because they make more money staying home than if they go to work, okay? But a lot will go to work, but a lot will stay home, okay? That's one of the bigger issues that we have on the table right now. And of course, we're starting to see the new stimulus plan coming in right now, and it's going to be debated sometime after Memorial Day, so it'll be very interesting times. Let's go back to my predictions. I do believe that we're going to see at least a 6-year recovery. And that, by the way, folks, is based on the economy being the way it was in February 2020, okay? So the question is the government going to invest in business? Or is it going to spend on the people? And that is the big question. So it's going to be very interesting. If the government continues to spend on the people, and I'm not saying they don't need it, because they created this. You know, they said the businesses had to shut down. They created the unemployment. They created the job loss, okay? But if they continue to spend here, then you're going to see the economy inflate with more and more money. You're going to see more inflation, all of that. The other piece is whether or not the government will invest in business, okay? We already know that they've done this. They've already done this through the EIDL loans. They've already done this through the PPP loans. And those are loans, okay? Now, in some cases, they're going to be forgivable. In some cases, they are not. There are going to be audits, and there's going to be all kinds of scrutiny around these loans, which is good. But the point is that the government's done both. The government has invested in business, and it's spent on the people, okay? And the question is you know, what's the new government going to decide? I will tell you guys, the only thing that's going to get the economy back on track is investing in businesses that provide jobs. The one thing that it won't do is incentivize people to go to work if they're making a lot of money and competing with those same businesses for employees. So this decision on the government for 2021 is a massive one. This election at the end of the year is going to be a game changer, guys. And pay close attention, because I know that some of you are, probably most of you are on this side of the equation where you're getting stimulus money and you're super happy. And a lot of people are on the other side. And right now, the sentiment was against business. Right now, the sentiment is against landlords. Right now, that's where the sentiment lies. You know, there's a big movement against the 1% and all that. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that it could go either way. And so if the money stays here, they're literally printing money, giving it to people to consume, okay? A guy like me, who's a landlord, or the real estate guys, we're going to be fine, okay? Because you're going to take the money from the government, you're going to pay me in the form of rent, you're going to pay me in all kinds of things. But what won't happen is you won't be able to buy houses and those kinds of things, because you're not going to be able to do that unless you have a job, okay? Because the government can shut off or turn on that unemployment money at any time, okay? So that's going to be the deciding factor. And what we haven't seen yet, and it's going to happen the rest of the year, is a lot of these businesses are going to reopen. A lot of these businesses are still not going to make it. They're going to limp along at 40, 50, 25% occupancy, or people coming in, and they're just not going to be able to cover their bills. And you're going to see a slew of people going out of business over a long period of time, and it's going to be horrible. And so that unemployment number of 18 million by the end of the year might even be higher. So a lot of this is going to depend on exactly the moves the government are going to make. And my suggestion to you is to pay close attention to this, because the way that the economy is going to get back on track and the way that the United States was built on small business. It was built on the American dream of somebody starting their business with nothing, with something they put on their credit card, or a loan from somebody, or a small business loan, and then making a living so they can get out of the corporate job world. That is the foundation of the United States, and that's what the United States is built on, is all these small businesses. the one that gets the most attention are all the public businesses, okay? But if you really look it up, they're a very small percentage of the total employment base. This is going to be a very, very interesting fight. This is going to be a very, very interesting debate. I would definitely engage on this because your guys' vote and your decisions and whatever you decide is fine. It's going to be very important that you weigh in on this because this decision here is going to determine whether or not this is going to be a 6-year recovery, a 10-year recovery, a 15-year recovery, okay? So thanks for listening. I really appreciate all your questions, and we'll talk to you next time.